The council chamber stretched out like a massive dome above the gathered representatives. Hundreds of alien species sat in their designated seats, their forms ranging from towering giants to small floating creatures. At the center of it all stood Daniel Pierce, the human ambassador. His hands gripped the edges of the speaking platform as he looked out at the faces watching him. Daniel had served Earth for 15 years in this place. He had negotiated trade deals, settled disputes, and tried to make humanity's voice heard among the older, more established civilizations. But today was different. Today he would say things that could never be taken back. Members of the Galaxy Council, Daniel began, his voice steady. I stand before you with evidence that cannot be ignored any longer. The holographic displays around the chamber flickered to life. Numbers and documents appeared in the air, visible to all. Daniel gestured toward them as he spoke. For 30 years, humanity has been part of this council. We joined with hope and excitement. We believed we would be treated as equals. We believed in fair trade and mutual respect. He paused, letting his words sink in. We were wrong. A ripple of movement went through the chamber. Some aliens leaned forward with interest. Others sat back with what looked like anger on their strange faces. Daniel continued. These documents show the truth. Every trade agreement we signed was designed to benefit other species at our expense. We sell our resources cheap and buy alien goods at inflated prices. When we protested, we were told this was standard practice. He pulled up another set of files. Here is evidence of technological suppression. 17 times human scientists developed new technologies. 17 times the Council found reasons to ban or restrict them. Meanwhile, other species use similar technology without any problems. In the observer gallery above, Captain Lisa Morgan watched the proceedings. She commanded the ESS Horizon, one of Earth's largest military vessels. Her ship sat in orbit around the Council station, waiting. Lisa had a bad feeling about how this would end. Daniel was still speaking. Our colonies have been sabotaged. The data shows clear proof. Equipment failures that were blamed on human error were actually caused by tampering. Supply ships that went missing were found later in the possession of rival species. When we demanded investigations, we were told we lacked evidence. The Vraxian ambassador rose from his seat. His species looked like massive reptiles with glowing eyes. He was one of the most powerful beings in the Council. These are serious accusations, the Vraxian said, his voice deep and rumbling. Do you have any idea what you are suggesting? I am suggesting nothing, Daniel replied calmly. I am stating facts. The evidence is here for everyone to see. Evidence can be manufactured, another alien called out. Perhaps humans simply cannot compete in the galactic marketplace. Perhaps your technology is inferior. Daniel felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice level. Then explain why the Council voted last month to place additional restrictions on human military vessels. We were told it was for safety reasons, but these restrictions do not apply to any other species. They would make it nearly impossible for us to defend our own territory. The chamber erupted in voices. Aliens argued with each other in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. The council leader, an ancient being called a Nexarian, raised one thin arm for silence. The vote was conducted fairly. The majority decided that human weapons technology posed a potential risk. A risk to whom? Daniel asked. We have never started a conflict. We have never threatened anyone. But we are constantly told we must limit ourselves while others face no such limits. Lisa Morgan touched the communication device in her ear. Her first officer was speaking from the ship. Captain, we are detecting movement. Several Vraxian warships are changing position. They are forming what looks like a blockade pattern around human vessels in the area. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. Stand by. Do not take any action yet, but bring our shields online quietly. Down in the chamber, Daniel took a deep breath. This was the moment everything would change. Earth has tried for 30 years to work within this system, he said. We have followed the rules even when those rules were unfair. We have swallowed our pride and accepted insults. We have paid unfair prices and accepted restrictions that apply to no one else, all because we believed in the idea of galactic unity. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as he could. But we now understand the truth. This council does not want unity. It wants conformity. It does not want cooperation. It wants control. And it does not want humans to be equals. It wants us to be subordinate. This is outrageous, the Vraxian ambassador shouted. We have welcomed humanity into the galactic community. You have welcomed us as servants, Daniel shot back. As a source of cheap labor and resources. As a species you can control and exploit, the Nexarian leader spoke again. Ambassador Pierce, you are dangerously close to violating Council protocols. I suggest you calm yourself and remember your position. My position, Daniel said quietly, is about to change. He straightened his shoulders and looked directly at the Council leader. Effective immediately, Earth is withdrawing from the Galaxy Council. All human diplomats, trade representatives, and military personnel will return home within 30 days. All treaties and agreements are hereby considered void. The chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens jumped to their feet shouting in anger or surprise. Some looked pleased. Others appeared shocked. You cannot do this. The Vraxian ambassador roared. We will impose sanctions. We will blockade your worlds. Daniel smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. You are welcome to try. But I warn you now, humanity will defend its interests by any means necessary. We are done being pushed around. He gathered his documents and walked away from the platform. His security team fell in around him as he headed for the exit. Behind him, the council chamber descended into arguments and accusations. Lisa Morgan was already moving. All human ships, this is Captain Morgan. Begin evacuation procedures immediately. All personnel are to return to their vessels within 6 hours. Throughout the massive council station, humans began packing their belongings and heading for the docking bays. Some of their alien colleagues looked sad to see them go. Others watched with barely concealed hostility. In the docking bay, Daniel Pierce met up with Lisa Morgan. Well, he said, we have really done it now. Yes, sir, Lisa replied. The question is what happens next. They both looked out at the stars beyond the station. Dozens of Vraxian warships were visible, their weapons clearly ready. Now, Daniel said softly, we find out if we made the right choice. The last human shuttle undocked from the station 3 days later. As it pulled away, the Vraxian fleet began moving into attack formation. The message was clear. Earth had declared its independence. Now it would have to fight for it. Lisa Morgan sat in her captain's chair aboard the ESS Horizon. Her crew was ready. Her weapons were charged, and somewhere behind her eyes a small voice wondered if humanity had just started a war it could not win. But there was no going back now. Earth had chosen its path. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Horizon's engines flared to life and the ship turned toward home. 3 weeks had passed since Earth walked away from the Galaxy Council. In that time, the Vraxian Empire had made its decision. They would teach humanity a lesson about defiance. Fleet Commander Zexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Around him floated holographic displays showing 200 Vraxian warships in perfect formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of alien engineering, equipped with plasma weapons and energy shields that had dominated space warfare for centuries. How long until we reach the human colony? Zexthor asked his navigation officer. 4 hours, Commander. The target is Titan's Gate, their mining operation in the outer territories. Zexthor nodded with satisfaction. Titan's Gate was small and poorly defended. It would fall quickly, and the humans would understand that leaving the Council had been a mistake. After this demonstration, Earth would come crawling back, willing to accept whatever terms the Vraxians offered. Have the humans attempted to communicate? Zexthor asked. No, sir. Our intelligence shows they evacuated the colony 3 days ago. They are running scared. Cowards, Zexthor muttered, but part of him felt disappointed. He had wanted to see human ships try to defend the colony. It would have been amusing to destroy them. The Vraxian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Titan's Gate system. Scanners immediately began searching for targets. The colony sat on a large asteroid, its domes and buildings clearly visible on the surface. Commander, the colony appears abandoned, the sensor officer reported. No life signs detected. Search for human ships, Zexthor ordered. Sir, the system appears empty. Wait, I am detecting debris fields and asteroid clusters with unusual formations. Zexthor frowned. Something felt wrong. Show me. The holographic display zoomed in on various locations throughout the system. Large asteroids floated in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, and there, hiding in their shadows, were heat signatures. Ships, the sensor officer shouted. Multiple contacts emerging from concealment. Human vessels appeared from behind asteroids and debris clouds. They were smaller than Vraxian warships and looked crude by comparison. But there were dozens of them and they were moving fast. "Battle stations," Zexthor commanded. "All ships, raise shields and prepare to fire." The human fleet spread out in a pattern that made no tactical sense to Zexthor. Instead of forming a defensive line, they scattered in all directions. Some ships dove below the plane of battle, others climbed above it. A few charged straight at the Vraxian formation. "They are panicking," Zexthor said with contempt. "Fire at will. Show them the price of defiance." Plasma bolts erupted from Vraxian weapons, lighting up the darkness of space. The first volley should have destroyed a dozen human ships. But the humans were already moving, twisting and turning in ways that seemed impossible. Most of the plasma fire missed completely. Then the humans returned fire. At first, Zexthor did not understand what he was seeing. The human weapons did not fire energy beams or plasma. Instead, they launched solid projectiles. Metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds. Ballistic weapons? Zexthor laughed. "Our shields will stop those easily." But he was wrong. The kinetic rounds punched straight through Vraxian energy shields as if they were not there. The shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. 3 Vraxian cruisers exploded in the first exchange, torn apart by the impact of metal hitting their hulls at thousands of kilometers per second. "How is this possible?" Zexthor demanded. The battle descended into chaos. Human ships refused to fight in any predictable pattern. They used the asteroids for cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Some launched missiles that seemed primitive until they detonated. Nuclear explosions lit up the battlefield, catching Vraxian ships in overlapping blast waves. Commander Jack Sullivan sat in the command chair of the ESS Defiance, watching his tactical display with cold focus. His ship was one of 30 human vessels in the system, and every captain knew their role perfectly. "Blue Squadron, target their formation on the left flank," Jack ordered. "Green Squadron, prepare your railguns. Wait for them to cluster together." The Vraxians were trying to reform their battle line, pulling ships together for mutual defense. It was exactly what Jack wanted them to do. "Fire," he said quietly. Railguns throughout the human fleet opened up simultaneously. Magnetic accelerators launched tungsten rods at a significant fraction of light speed. The rods hit the clustered Vraxian ships like the hammer of an angry god. Shields flickered and failed. Hulls crumpled. Ships broke apart or went spinning out of control. Jack had studied the Vraxian military for years. They were powerful but predictable. They relied on their superior technology and rarely adapted their tactics. The Vraxians had fought the same way for so long that they had forgotten how to improvise. Humans, on the other hand, had spent thousands of years fighting each other. Every human war had taught new lessons about tactics, strategy, and the brutal efficiency of violence. Jack had read about the great battles of human history, from ancient times to the wars that had nearly destroyed Earth before humanity unified. All that knowledge had been poured into training the human fleet. "Deploy countermeasures," Jack ordered. Human ships released clouds of metallic chaff and electromagnetic jamming devices. Vraxian sensors, which had never encountered such primitive tricks, went haywire. Their targeting systems could not lock onto human vessels through the interference. Meanwhile, human sensors designed to work in contested environments had no such problems. Human weapons continued to find their marks with deadly precision. Zexthor watched in growing horror as his fleet fell apart. 20 ships were already destroyed. 30 more were damaged and limping away from the battle. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. "All ships focus fire on the closest human vessel," he commanded. "Overwhelming force. Destroy it." 50 Vraxian ships turned their weapons on a single human cruiser. Plasma bolts converged from multiple angles. The human ship's shields flared and collapsed under the assault. For a moment, Zexthor felt a surge of triumph. Then the human ship exploded, and the explosion was far larger than it should have been. "Commander, that was a trap. The ship was rigged as a bomb." The explosion caught a dozen Vraxian vessels in its blast radius. Antimatter warheads hidden in the human ship's hull released their fury. 6 more Vraxian ships disappeared in blinding light. Jack Sullivan allowed himself a small smile. The sacrifice of one automated drone ship, made to look like a crude vessel, had cost the Vraxians dearly. It was a cruel trick, but war was cruel. "All ships press the attack while they are disorganized," Jack ordered. The human fleet surged forward. More kinetic rounds flew through space. Missiles with multiple warheads separated and sought different targets. Some human ships even used lasers to blind Vraxian sensors, a tactic so simple that the aliens had never bothered to defend against it. Zexthor's pride had turned to ash in his mouth. "Order a retreat," he said, his voice hollow. "Get us out of here!" The surviving Vraxian ships turned and fled, their faster-than-light drives engaging in a desperate rush to escape. Of the 200 warships that had entered the system, only 160 would leave. 40 had been destroyed or disabled in less than 2 hours of combat. Jack Sullivan watched them go on his display. He felt no joy in the victory, only grim satisfaction. The Vraxians had come expecting an easy fight. They had learned that humans did not fight easily. "Stand down from battle stations," Jack ordered. "Damage report?" 3 ships with moderate damage. "No ships lost. Casualties are minimal, sir," Jack nodded. They had been lucky. But luck alone had not won this battle. Preparation, training, and the willingness to fight with everything they had made the difference. "Send a message to Earth Command," Jack said. "The colony is secure. The Vraxian fleet has been repelled." As the message traveled toward Earth, the news of the battle began spreading through the galaxy. The Vraxian Empire, which had never lost a battle in living memory, had been defeated by the species they considered primitive. The universe was watching now, and humanity had just proven they were not to be underestimated. The news of the Vraxian defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds in 1,000,000 homes, aliens watched recordings of the battle at Titan's Gate. They saw the mighty Vraxian fleet torn apart by human weapons. They heard the reports of Vraxian ships fleeing in disarray. The Galaxy Council convened an emergency session. The massive chamber was full of shouting, arguing aliens. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called for caution. A few spoke quietly among themselves, their eyes calculating. The Vraxian ambassador stood before the council, his scaled face tight with barely controlled rage. "The humans must be punished for this aggression. We demand that the council authorize a full military response." "Aggression?" A small alien from the Tarvan delegation stood up. "You attacked their colony. They defended it. That is not aggression. That is self-defense. They destroyed 40 of our ships. You brought 200 ships to attack one mining colony," the Tarvan representative replied. "What did you expect them to do? Surrender?" The Vraxian ambassador's eyes blazed with fury, but before he could respond, another voice cut through the noise. It belonged to the representative of the Zenthari Collective, a powerful civilization that had long competed with the Vraxians for influence. "Perhaps," the Zenthari said smoothly, "we should ask ourselves why the Vraxians lost. They had superior numbers, superior technology, and the element of surprise. Yet they were defeated. This suggests that we have all underestimated humanity. They fight like savages," the Vraxian ambassador spat. "Kinetic weapons, nuclear bombs, suicide ships. They have no honor." "They have victory," the Zenthari replied, "which is more than you can claim." The council chamber erupted in fresh arguments. Some species began questioning their own assumptions about humanity. Others worried about what this meant for galactic stability. If the Vraxians could be defeated, what did that mean for everyone else? While the council argued, the galaxy itself was changing. Colonel Rachel Bennett sat across from 3 Corvani officials in a private meeting room on their home world. The Corvani were a medium-sized civilization, neither powerful like the Vraxians nor weak like the smaller species. They had always tried to maintain neutrality in galactic politics. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Rachel said. The lead Corvani official, whose name translated roughly as Bright Sky, studied the human colonel with interest. "Your message suggested you had information we would find valuable." Rachel pulled out a data crystal and set it on the table between them. "This contains evidence of Vraxian manipulation of council policies over the past 50 years. Trade regulations that favor Vraxian interests, technology bans that prevent potential competitors from rising, even evidence of sabotage against species that threatened Vraxian dominance." Bright Sky picked up the crystal carefully. "These are serious accusations." "They are documented facts," Rachel replied. "My government thought you should know the truth about how the council really operates." The 3 Corvani officials exchanged glances. One of them spoke up. "Why bring this to us? Why not make it public?" "Because going public would cause chaos," Rachel explained. but showing it to key civilizations privately allows them to verify the truth and make informed decisions about their own futures. Bright Sky inserted the crystal into a reader. His eyes widened as he began reviewing the files. The other two officials leaned in, reading over his shoulder. The silence in the room grew heavy. Finally, Bright Sky looked up. This changes everything. If this is true, the Council has been nothing but a tool for Vraxian control. That is what we discovered, Rachel said. It is why we left. And now you are offering us this information freely? What do you want in return? Rachel smiled. The truth should not have a price. But if you decide that the Council no longer serves your interests either, Earth would be happy to discuss trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Fair agreements, where both sides benefit equally. The Corvani officials looked at each other again. Rachel could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. They were realizing that the old galactic order was crumbling, and new opportunities were emerging. While diplomacy happened behind closed doors, the galaxy's economy was in chaos. Captain Paul Martinez guided his merchant vessel, the Free Trader, through a crowded space lane near the frontier world of Helios Prime. Behind him, 20 other human cargo ships followed in loose formation. Captain, we are being hailed by the local trade authority, his communications officer reported. Put them through. An alien face appeared on the screen. It belonged to one of the insectoid species that inhabited this region. Human vessel, you are not authorized to trade in this sector. Council regulations require proper licensing, Paul grinned. We are no longer bound by Council regulations. We withdrew, remember? Now I have a hold full of medical supplies, manufactured goods, and food. I am willing to sell at prices 40% below what the Council-approved merchants charge. Are you interested? The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been surprise. 40% below standard prices? That is correct. And I can be unloading within the hour if you give me clearance. There was a long pause. Then the alien said, stand by. 20 minutes later, Paul received clearance to land. Within 6 hours, his entire cargo was sold. The local merchants, who had been charging inflated prices thanks to Council-sanctioned monopolies, watched in fury as humans undercut them dramatically. But the local population was thrilled. Families could now afford medicine for their sick children. Restaurants could buy quality food without going broke. Workers could purchase tools and equipment at reasonable prices. By the time the Free Trader left Helios Prime, Paul had orders for 3 more shipments. And word was spreading to other frontier worlds. The humans were offering fair deals and good prices. The Vraxian Empire tried to stop the human merchants. They established blockades around key trade routes and threatened to seize any human vessel they encountered. But space is vast, and human ships were proving surprisingly difficult to catch. Human captains used stealth technology, false transponder signals, and routes through dangerous regions that other species avoided. They shared information about Vraxian patrol patterns and warned each other of danger zones. The blockades proved to be mostly useless. Worse for the Vraxians, some of their own captains were refusing orders. After the disaster at Titan's Gate, morale in the Vraxian fleet had collapsed. Captains who had once been eager for glory now made excuses to avoid engaging human ships. Some simply ignored orders to attack human merchants, claiming their sensors had malfunctioned, or that the humans had already fled by the time they arrived. The Xanthari Collective watched all of this with great interest. They saw the Vraxian Empire weakening, its military defeated and its economy suffering from human competition. They saw opportunities in the chaos. Xanthari fleets began moving into territory that the Vraxians could no longer effectively control. Old border disputes flared up again. The Vraxians, stretched thin trying to blockade human trade routes and maintain their crumbling empire, could not respond to all the challenges at once. Other civilizations saw what was happening and began making their own moves. Species that had been dominated by the Vraxians for generations started demanding independence. Worlds that had been forced into unfair trade agreements began refusing to honor them. The Galaxy Council, which had been designed to prevent exactly this kind of chaos, was powerless to stop it. The Council had relied on the Vraxians to enforce its decisions, but the Vraxians were no longer capable of enforcement. And without enforcement, the Council's authority was revealed to be an illusion. Admiral Stephen Clark sat in his office at Earth Defense Command in Geneva, watching holographic displays that showed the state of the galaxy, Red zones indicated conflict areas. Yellow zones showed regions of political instability. Blue zones marked civilizations that had reached out to Earth for potential cooperation. There was a lot of blue on the map. "Sir, we have received 73 new communications in the past week," his aide reported. "Most are requests for trade negotiations. 15 are asking about defensive pacts. 6 are offering to share intelligence about Vraxian fleet movements." Stephen nodded slowly. "What about the Vraxian response?" "Intelligence suggests they are assembling a major fleet, sir. Over 500 ships. They are calling it the Grand Armada. The target appears to be Earth itself." Stephen had been expecting this. The Vraxians could not let their defeat stand unanswered. They would gather everything they had and try to crush humanity in one overwhelming strike. When will they be ready to move? 2 weeks, maybe 3. They are pulling ships from all over their empire. Stephen looked at the star map, his eyes focusing on the blue dot that represented Earth. Home, the birthplace of humanity. The world they would defend with everything they had. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Stephen said quietly. "Recall every ship. Activate all defensive protocols. The Vraxians are coming, and when they arrive, they will find out what it really means to fight humanity on our home ground." His aide saluted and left. Stephen remained, staring at the map. The galaxy was fracturing, old powers were falling, and new possibilities were emerging. But first, humanity had to survive what was coming. The greatest battle in human history was. The Vraxian Grand Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 523 warships arranged themselves in a formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. It was the largest fleet the Vraxian Empire had ever assembled. Fleet Marshal Drentok stood on the bridge of the Imperial Fang, the most powerful warship in Vraxian history. Around him, officers monitored displays showing the fleet's position and status. Every ship was at full battle readiness. Every weapon was charged and ready to fire. "Begin the advance," Drentok commanded. "Maintain formation. Show these primitives what real power looks like." The Armada moved forward as one, engines burning bright against the darkness of space. They advanced in a traditional Vraxian battle formation, shields overlapping for maximum protection, weapons arranged for optimal firing patterns. It was a formation that had dominated galactic warfare for centuries. Drentok felt confident. Yes, the humans had won at Titan's Gate, but that had been a minor skirmish against a small fleet. This was different. This was overwhelming force. The humans could not possibly stand against this many ships. "Marshal, we are detecting objects throughout the asteroid belt," the sensor officer reported. "Thousands of them. They appear to be artificial." "Defense platforms," Drentok said dismissively. "Destroy them as we pass." What he did not know was that humanity had spent the 3 weeks since Titan's Gate preparing for this moment. The solar system had been transformed into a fortress, and every defensive measure humanity could devise was now active. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, General Nicole Foster watched the Vraxian fleet advance on her tactical displays. Around her, dozens of officers coordinated the defense of humanity's home system. Every ship, every weapon, every platform was linked into a single integrated network. "Distance to primary defensive line?" Nicole asked. 20 million kilometers and closing, General." Nicole took a deep breath. Everything humanity had built, everything they had learned, everything they were, would be tested in the next few hours. Win or lose, this battle would determine Earth's future. "Activate asteroid belt defenses," she ordered. Throughout the belt, thousands of automated platforms came online. They had been built in secret over years, hidden among the rocks and ice. Some were simple missile launchers. Others were railguns. A few carried directed energy weapons reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. The Vraxian fleet entered the belt confidently. Their forward ships began firing on the closest platforms, destroying them with plasma bolts. But for every platform destroyed, 10 more remained, and they were all firing now. Missiles erupted from hidden launchers, crossing the distance to the Vraxian fleet in minutes. The Vraxians shot down most of them, but not all. Explosions blossomed against Vraxian shields. Some ships took damage. A few smaller vessels were destroyed outright. "Keep advancing," Drentok ordered. "These are just automated defenses. The real battle will come when we reach their inner system." But the automated platforms were just the beginning. As the Vraxian fleet pushed deeper into the belt, human stealth fighters emerged from hiding spots among the asteroids. These small, fast ships had been waiting patiently, their crews ready for this moment. Captain Brandon Walsh led a squadron of 20 fighters designated Shadow Wing. His craft, the Silent Strike, was barely larger than a shuttle, but it carried weapons that could hurt ships 100 times its size. Shadow Wing. "This is Shadow Lead," Brandon said over the squadron channel. "Target the ships on the fleet's outer edge. Hit and run. Do not stay to fight. Strike and vanish." Confirmed, Shadow Lead. The fighters accelerated out of the asteroids, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible to Vraxian sensors. They closed to weapons range and fired. Antimatter missiles streaked toward Vraxian cruisers. Directed energy beams lanced through shields, cutting into hulls. 3 Vraxian ships exploded before they even knew they were under attack. The fighters were gone before the rest of the fleet could respond, disappearing back into the asteroid field. Drentok slammed his fist on his command console. "Find those ships. Destroy them." But the fighters were designed for exactly this kind of warfare. They moved from hiding spot to hiding spot, striking and vanishing like ghosts. The Vraxians wasted ammunition firing at empty space or destroying asteroids that might have concealed enemies. The Grand Armada pushed through the asteroid belt, but the cost was higher than expected. 70 ships had been destroyed or damaged badly enough that they had to fall back. The belt had been expected to be a minor obstacle. Instead, it had been a killing ground. "Marshal, we are approaching Jupiter's orbit," the navigation officer reported. "Good. Once we clear the outer planets, we will have open space to Earth." But Jupiter held its own surprises. The massive planet's many moons had been fortified with hidden installations. As the Vraxian fleet passed, weapons opened fire from unexpected angles. Missiles launched from Europa. Railguns on Ganymede fired tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. Even Io, with its volcanic surface, concealed weapon platforms in specially hardened bunkers. The Vraxians returned fire, destroying some installations. But they could not stop them all. More ships fell to the coordinated assault from Jupiter's moons. Drentok watched his fleet shrink as they advanced. Already 100 ships were gone, but he still had more than 400. Surely that would be enough. "Sir, we are approaching Saturn. Sensors are detecting similar installations on its moons." "Ignore them," Drentok snapped. "Full speed ahead." We pushed through to Earth, but Saturn's defenses could not be ignored. The planet's famous rings hid thousands of stealth mines and automated defense drones. As the Vraxian fleet attempted to pass, the rings came alive with weapons fire. Kinetic impactors hidden in the ice struck Vraxian ships from unexpected angles. Laser batteries cut through shields and armor. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, revealed massive railgun installations that had been built into the moon's surface over years of secret construction. The battle at Saturn lasted 3 hours. The Vraxians pushed through, but at terrible cost. Another 80 ships were destroyed or too damaged to continue. Finally, the battered armada reached the inner solar system. Earth and Mars floated before them, blue and red jewels in the darkness. Between the planets and the advancing fleet, humanity's main defense force waited. Lisa Morgan, now promoted to admiral, commanded the Earth defense fleet from her flagship, the ESS Guardian. Around her ship, 150 human warships arranged themselves in careful formation. They were outnumbered more than 2 to 1 by the remaining Vraxian ships, but they had advantages the enemy did not expect. "All ships, this is Admiral Morgan," Lisa broadcast. "You know what is at stake. Behind us is everything we love, everything we have built, everyone we care about. The Vraxians came here thinking we were weak. Let us show them the truth. Let us show them what humans do when you threaten our home." Cheers rang out across the fleet communication channels. Every ship was ready. Every captain knew the plan. The Vraxian fleet advanced, weapons firing. Plasma bolts crossed the distance between the fleets, striking human shields. The human fleet returned fire with kinetic weapons and missiles. But then Earth's secret weapons revealed themselves. Massive orbital platforms hidden behind the moon swung into view. These stations were the size of small cities, built in Earth's orbital shipyards over years. They mounted weapons that dwarfed anything on the human warships. Particle beam cannons powered by fusion reactors fired streams of accelerated particles that could melt through any armor. Electromagnetic pulse weapons disrupted Vraxian systems across dozens of ships simultaneously. And most devastating of all, mass driver weapons launched massive projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Drentok watched in horror as his remaining ships began to disintegrate. The humans had not been preparing for weeks. They had been preparing for years, maybe decades. Every defensive measure had been planned and built in secret while humanity smiled and pretended to be compliant members of the Council. All ships, emergency retreat, Drentok ordered. But the humans had planned for that too. Fast attack ships swung around to cut off the Vraxian escape routes. Mines deployed earlier activated, blocking the path back to the outer system. The Vraxians were trapped in a killing box of humanity's design. Lisa Morgan watched the battle with grim satisfaction. The Vraxians had come expecting an easy victory. They were learning that humanity did not give easy victories to anyone. All ships press the attack, she ordered. Show no mercy. They came to destroy our world. Let us send them home with a message they will never forget. The battle raged for 6 more hours. When it finally ended, 3/4 of the Vraxian Grand Armada was destroyed. The survivors fled the solar system in disorder, their once mighty formation shattered. Drentok's flagship was among the survivors, but barely. The Imperial Fang limped away from Earth, its hull scarred and burned, its crew in shock. As the last Vraxian ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, Nicole Foster allowed herself to relax slightly. "Damage report?" she asked. 32 ships lost, 68 damaged. Casualties are still being counted, but preliminary estimates suggest around 5,000 dead and 12,000 wounded. Nicole closed her eyes briefly. The destruction of the Vraxian Grand Armada sent shockwaves through the galaxy that would be felt for generations. Within days, reports reached every corner of known space. The Vraxian Empire, which had dominated galactic affairs for thousands of years, had sent its greatest fleet against a single world. And that world had destroyed it. On the Vraxian homeworld, riots broke out in the streets. Citizens who had believed in their empire's invincibility now questioned everything. The government tried to suppress the news, but it was too late. Everyone knew the truth. The empire was no longer invincible. Worse, the empire's subjugated world saw their opportunity. Species that had been conquered centuries ago rose up in rebellion. Without the fleet to enforce order, the Vraxians could not maintain control. Within weeks, a dozen worlds declared independence. Within months, it would be hundreds. The Vraxian Empire, which had seemed eternal, was collapsing. But while the Vraxians fell, something new was rising. President Elizabeth Carter stood before the United Earth Assembly in New York. The chamber was full of representatives from every nation on Earth. Behind her, on massive screens, images showed dozens of alien ambassadors waiting to address the assembly. "Members of the assembly," Elizabeth began, her voice calm and strong. "3 months ago, we withdrew from the Galaxy Council. We did so because we refused to accept exploitation and second-class status. We were told we would face sanctions, blockades, and war, and indeed we have faced all of these things." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But we have also discovered something important. We are not alone in wanting something better. Across the galaxy, civilizations are reaching out to us. They are asking for fair trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and honest cooperation." The screens behind her lit up, showing messages from dozens of species. Elizabeth continued. "The old order is dying. The Galaxy Council was never about unity. It was about maintaining the power of a few dominant species. But that system is broken now. And in its place, we have the opportunity to build something better." She gestured to the screens. "These are representatives from 73 different civilizations. Some are small, some are large, but all of them share a common belief. They believe that civilizations should work together as equals. They believe in fair trade and mutual respect. They believe, as we do, that might does not make right." The assembly listened in rapt attention as Elizabeth outlined her vision. A new galactic organization, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced compliance. No civilization would dominate the others. Disputes would be resolved through mediation and negotiation. Each member would retain full sovereignty and the right to defend itself. "We are calling it the Confederation of Free Worlds," Elizabeth said. "And Earth will be a founding member but not its ruler. We will be one voice among many, as it should be." The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would help lead the creation of a new galactic order. The Xanthari Collective was one of the first major civilizations to join the Confederation. Their representative, speaking from their homeworld, explained their reasoning. "For too long, we have watched the Galaxy Council favor certain species over others. We have played that game because we had no alternative. But humanity has shown us that there is another way. They stood alone against overwhelming force and won, not because they sought to dominate, but because they refused to be dominated. This is the kind of partner we wish to have. Other civilizations followed. Some joined because they believed in the Confederation's principles. Others joined because they recognized that the balance of power had shifted, and they wanted to be on the winning side. Either way, the Confederation grew rapidly. Admiral Lisa Morgan found herself in an unexpected role. She had been a military commander, trained to fight battles. Now she was helping to organize a joint defense force with representatives from a dozen different species. The first meetings were awkward. Aliens who had never worked with humans before struggled to understand human military thinking. Humans found alien tactics strange and sometimes inefficient, but slowly they began to learn from each other. A Corvani officer named Bright Wind, who had been a captain in his species' defense fleet, approached Lisa after one particularly difficult meeting. "Admiral Morgan," he said in careful English, "I wanted to tell you something. When we first heard about humans, we thought you were just another aggressive species. But now working with you, I understand. You are not aggressive for the sake of aggression. You are protective." "There is a difference," Lisa smiled. "Thank you. We fight when we must, but what we really want is peace. We just refuse to accept peace at the cost of our freedom." "That," Brightwind said, "is something my people understand very well. We look forward to serving alongside you." Joint patrols began operating within months. Human ships flew alongside Corvani, Xanthari, and vessels from dozens of other civilizations. They protected trade routes from pirates and responded to distress calls. It was not always smooth. Different species had different customs and communication styles, but they learned to work together. Meanwhile, Commander Jack Sullivan led relief missions to worlds that had been devastated by the chaos following the Galaxy Council's collapse. His ships carried food, medical supplies, and engineering equipment. On a world called Helios Prime, Jack watched as human doctors worked alongside local healers to treat refugees from the fallen Vraxian territories. Human engineers helped rebuild damaged infrastructure. Teachers from Earth worked with local educators to establish schools for orphaned children. An elderly alien approached Jack as he surveyed the relief camp. The alien was from a species Jack did not recognize, with 4 arms and gentle eyes. "Human Commander," the alien said, "I must thank you. My family lost everything when the Vraxians fell. We fled here with nothing. Your people have given us food, shelter, and hope." Jack felt uncomfortable with the praise. "We are just doing what is right." "Perhaps," the alien said. "But not everyone does what is right, even when they can. Your people do. That is worth remembering." Stories like this spread through the galaxy. Humans became known not just as fierce warriors, but as people who helped others. It was a reputation that opened doors and built friendships. On Earth, in laboratories and universities around the world, scientists worked on projects that had been forbidden under Galaxy Council regulations. Without those restrictions, human innovation exploded. Dr. Karen Phillips led a team developing new propulsion systems that combined human engineering with alien physics. Their work produced faster-than-light drives that were more efficient than anything previously available. When Karen published her findings, she made them freely available to all Confederation members. A Xanthari scientist who reviewed the work contacted Karen directly. "Dr. Phillips, this is remarkable. You are giving this technology away? You could sell it for enormous profit." Karen shrugged. "Knowledge should be shared. If our allies have better technology, they can defend themselves better. That makes everyone safer, including us." The Xanthari scientist was quiet for a moment. "You humans are very strange. But I am beginning to think the galaxy needs more of your kind of strange." Technology sharing became a cornerstone of the Confederation. Species contributed their best knowledge freely and everyone benefited. The result was a technological renaissance that transformed hundreds of worlds. 5 years after Earth's withdrawal from the Galaxy Council, Admiral Lisa Morgan stood on the observation deck of Confederation Station, a massive structure built in neutral space. Through the windows, she could see ships from 100 different civilizations coming and going. Trade was flourishing. Wars had decreased. Cooperation was replacing competition. Daniel Pierce, who had delivered humanity's Declaration of Independence, stood beside her. He was now Earth's ambassador to the Confederation. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Lisa asked. Daniel smiled. "When I walked out of that council chamber, I thought we might be starting a war we could not win. I never imagined we would be starting something better. We got lucky, Lisa said. Maybe, Daniel replied, but I think it was more than luck. We stood up for what was right. We fought when we had to fight. And when the fighting was over, we reached out our hands in friendship instead of conquest. That is what made the difference. On a distant world in a classroom full of young aliens, a teacher explained the history of the withdrawal crisis. The students listened with fascination as their teacher described how one species' courage had changed the entire galaxy. The humans could have tried to dominate everyone after their victory, the teacher said. They had proven they could win battles. But instead they chose cooperation. They chose to build rather than conquer. That choice changed everything. A small student raised a tentacle. Teacher, does that mean the humans are the leaders of the Confederation? The teacher thought about this carefully. The humans are important members of the Confederation, but they are not its leaders in the way the Viraxians led the old council. Instead, they lead by example. They show us what it means to be strong without being cruel, to be proud without being arrogant, and to defend ourselves without attacking others. That is the kind of leadership the galaxy needed. Back on Earth, in a quiet house in Geneva, General Nicole Foster sat with her family,